No question about it. I am ready to get hurt again.
Welcome, everyone, to episode number 31 of the Battered Herons. I am your host, Daniel Granada, along with my co-host here, Christian Duran. And we have a very special guest with us today, Alex Windley from the Heron Outlet, Bleacher Report, AAW 1998, the Croc Specialist. What else you got, Alex?
I've got a couple of tattoos, but I don't really make a point to show them. But yeah, other than that, I do love my Crocs. Yeah,
a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess before we get started, how are you, Chris and Alex? How you doing, Chris?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. It's a nice Wednesday. It's a Woo Wednesday. I didn't wear my Wu-Tang hat like I did last week, but I put enough post up for Wu-Tang Wednesday. So it's a beautiful day today. How about you, Alex? How's everything with you?
Yeah, a really good day today. Busy day, but I'm just happy to be alive and kicking. Really.
There we go. And hello to Esteban Dido saying Alex, of course, is a star. Right before we came on, we were trying to tell her that she was a big time, but she was, she's very humble. So that's always appreciated when somebody's nice and humble, even though they know that they're hot stuff.
It's all right. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, thanks for the confidence, guys.
Before we get started, I need to know, is it true that you really are that obsessed with Crocs?
Yeah, actually, I'm wearing them under my desk here. I have a neon green pair with a bunch of those things they call giblets, and yeah, I don't know. Crocs are addicting. I know people get flamed for wearing them, but I don't know. They're comfortable and durable, and I wear them outside the house, inside. It doesn't matter. So they're comfortable to me.
So I have a question, right? So there's like the strap in the back, like. Are you ready for war when you put it in the back, and then you're ready to chill when you put it in the front? Is that how it goes, or you're just with the strap in the front the whole time and rocking and rolling?
Yeah. The strap in the back, it's called sport mode. I call it sport mode when I'm when I have to like wear them outside or whatever. But yeah, most of the time the strap is like folded in the front because it just feels a little better.
Chill time.
And, yeah, it's not as less sport mode essentially.
Yes.
There's a debate going on with some people that we know on Inter Miami Twitter about wearing socks and slides out and about. Now, before we get into the real soccer stuff, I need your opinion on this before we move on. Are we okay with socks and slides out and about in the city?
No, sorry, no.
Thank you.
I'm not a fan. I'm
All
not
right.
a fan. Sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if they're listening right now, but if they aren't, hopefully they listen to that soon.
I mean, I would think that at least with black socks you can get by with that, but I mean, other than
the
that,
white and black, nah. The white,
white and black, that just doesn't work.
Nah.
All right. So we are what would you say 3 games into the preseason? Would you count that? So we're 3 games into the preseason. We haven't necessarily looked. Everybody says we haven't looked good against the professional teams, right? But against FIU, apparently we were okay because once the starters came in, they took care of business. How would you see how things have gone so far in the preseason? Because you've actually I haven't been able to watch any game because I wasn't at that game in person against Vasco da Gama, and obviously we couldn't go to the other games. How have you felt about the preseason thus far?
Honestly, it's not. I'll compare it to last season's preseason where they won that preseason tournament and everyone felt good going into the season. Then they ended up losing 5 straight games. So this preseason, I think it's more so the team just trying to gel together. They're in this new formation, the 4-3-1-2, and Neville seems pretty hell bent on using that. So it's more so like them trying to get their passing patterns down and just them trying to gel more so than winning. But I will say in the Miami Herald I was reading this afternoon, actually, Michelle Kaufman had a couple of quotes from Phil Neville where he said he wasn't pleased with how Inter Miami played against St. Louis. So yes, they're building this more possession-based style, but obviously Phil Neville wants them to play better or take his direction a little bit better. So yes, it is a slight concern that they can beat FIU fine and Vasco da Gama, first preseason game, but St. Louis, I was there, and there are times where it did look a little rusty. I will say, and I know there are a couple of starters missing. Joseph wasn't playing. Franco Negri wasn't playing. Christos just signed. The
Mota
10
wasn't playing.
situation. Yeah,
Well,
Mota, the 10 situation. Yeah, it looked bad, but then they grew into the game.
You
But
could
still,
but it's
you
a
could
well,
technically
it's
be missing 5 players.
yeah, they were, and yeah, it took them a while to grow into the game. I'm not gonna lie, and I will say this. I will say this. So the first like 20 minutes, like it was slow, but they started to get a rhythm and they started to get their passing patterns down and it looked better. And they didn't really give up a goal from open play. It was more so from a set piece. So it wasn't like they were, getting battered 90 minutes for them to lose 4-0. It was more so this one set piece, Drake wasn't able to save it, and hence the starters went down a goal. But if they played a full 90 with those starters, I think they would have tied and maybe eventually got the win. But it did look rusty, and I think it's just them processing this more possession based style.
Well, and it's a weird thing, right? Because we're talking about preseason where there's not much in terms of the weight behind it. It's where you sort of see where everybody is at in terms of skill, in terms of where they fit in the team. But at the end of the day, like fans are still fans and they're looking at this preseason like I know that it doesn't matter, but it kind of matters. And so, when it comes to people being worried, it's weird because it's like I tell people, it's no big deal. But then at the same time, you're still not seeing the production that you wish to see from the players that you have on the field,
Yeah, and I agree. I think, they obviously, the fans, they want to see a win. The Vasco game was, first preseason game. FIU was closed doors. They won. Obviously, it's a college team, but the St. Louis game was pretty, it was kind of telling. And I'm not going to lie, they didn't really get into it until the first 20 minutes. And, it was rough. And yeah, I agree. I think they need some results, but at the same time, preseason doesn't really matter if they go on the first 2 games of the season against CF Montreal and the Union. If they go in and win those 2 games or get a win and a draw, I think people won't really care what happened in preseason as long as during the regular season they go and ball out essentially. So, yes, it is important for them to show results to the fans, but at the same time, during these preseason games, if they just continue to work on what they're trying to do with this
Yeah,
formation, then at the end of the day, as long as they make the playoffs, top 4, win a trophy this season, U.S. Open Cup, at the end of the day, preseason is, it doesn't really matter.
well,
Well,
the
I
one
agree.
thing,
Go ahead.
yeah, the one thing that I picked up because I was listening to your podcast earlier this week, and the one thing that stood out to me, which I've been just waiting for, is for Noah Allen to have this sort of blast out party. And finally, I'm hearing some positive things coming out, and according to Noah Allen. So, Dan, what do you think about hearing that kind of thing? And then I guess we could toss it to Alex and tell me what you thought about his gameplay during the game.
Look, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the games. I'm hoping that Noah Allen's looking better because I was really counting on him being a big contributor over there on the left side. But after Franco Negri came in, I really thought that Noah Allen wouldn't have a chance to get up on and start at some point at all, as far as starting maybe as a depth piece for maybe some Open Cup games. But from everything that Alex and Ian were saying, he's been looking pretty good.
Yeah, he looked really good. I was taken back and a little surprised. Last season I do feel like he was thrown into the deep end. Against Austin FC and some of the preseason games, he didn't look quite up to it. But watching him against St. Louis, he was arguably one of the better players among the first set of starters. He was single handedly the reason why Miami's offense got going. He had a lot of good shots. A lot of good crosses. He read the space well on the flank. He, like I said, he had a couple of shots and yeah, he's pushing the team forward as a fullback, and it was really impressive to see. He's only 18 and still growing, with his football IQ and physically, but he looked the part and he looked strong and really good. So yeah, I do think even though Franco Negri did come in, I do think Noah Allen will get some chances to start in U.S. Open Cup games or Leagues Cup or even some regular season games. He looked that good and he's improved a lot over the offseason. So I was really pleased to see
That's
that.
fantastic.
I heard that in the same. Obviously, again, I didn't watch it. I'm going based off of what I've read and seen or heard. They were pressing high, St. Louis, that is, and I know that Inter Miami wants to play out of the back. Now, until they have their 4 starting backs back there, I don't know, how did that look? Did they have a hard time with that?
Actually, no, they managed to play out the press. At least the defense did, but they did have trouble connecting that defense to the midfield a lot. But as far as the defenders go on the ball, they didn't look uncomfortable. I'll call out Christopher McVey for looking particularly really comfortable on the ball. He had the ball, and not once did I fear them losing it. He looked really calm and composed. Noah Allen, another one, he looked really solid on the ball. I will say DeAndre Yedlin, I don't know if it's World Cup hangover or whatever. He did struggle a little bit. Him and Ime Mavika on that right hand side. Like I said, it could just be rust or they're out of form. But
Well, Mabika worries me.
yeah, and it's unfortunate because I was really high on him, in the previous years. But it seems like he almost plateaued a little bit. Maybe
Yeah.
let's rust and he'll grow out of it. But during that friendly, it seemed like him and Yedlin, were Mabika would be, across on the field here trying to snuff out, an opposition attack, and Yedlin will be trying to get up the flank and leave a gap in on St. Louis's left hand side, and the counter just would come from there, and then Mabika would have to switch over, and yeah, they looked really dysfunctional, and I don't want to pick on them because it's preseason, and that's something that Neville can work out. But it was rough, and obviously they grew into it, but still, McVay looked good and Noah Allen looked good, but on that right hand side, Mabika and Yedlin, they didn't quite fit. Like I said, maybe with Ryan Saylor coming in and Sergei Kristoff, maybe better ball playing center backs, it works a little bit better, but that right hand side was looking a little shaky during the friendly.
Well, and that's sort of the gift and the curse that you get with DeAndre Yedlin, where, you have such a strong, I don't want to say strong offensively, but he's ready to go at any moment to make an offensive play and to make a counterattack. But then at the same time, when you get caught with your pants down later on in the half field, when they come to counter, it's going to be bad news for Ayman Mabika. Now, I know that Danny, we were talking a little bit before we got on, and you mentioned something about McVay that I thought was really, really interesting.
Well, I feel like, myself included, I feel maybe to an extent overconfident about McVay at center back. But McVay didn't play center back for us all that much last year. So we're just going based off of what we did see and the fact that he's good with the ball at his feet. Now, I don't know how he did. Was he playing? Was it in Sweden, or I forgot where he was playing before he came over here.
Yeah, it was Sweden.
So, but with us, I'm just basing it off of just a small sample size. And then I went back to see what games it was that he did start at center back. And those first 5 games of the year last year, he started at center back. And I didn't realize that he was the starting center back those first 5 games. The 6th game, they moved him to left back, and that's when we kind of started rolling. Now, I'm not saying that there's a correlation there, but I thought that was quite the coincidence. So, is everybody a little just too confident with McVay? Do you think we're like overconfident, and maybe we should just press the brakes a little bit to see how he is consistently at center back?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I will say that McVay was really decent at left back, but Neville really talked about having balance this season and having a left-footed left back go up instead of McVay. He's right-footed, and having that kind of like tuck in thing that he does. But yeah, that's a fair assessment. I'd say McVay is very steady. He does a lot of things very well at like a B plus level, but he never really stands out at one particular thing. But maybe in this more, yeah.
No, go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, maybe in this more possession-based style, like he'll have more time on the ball to show his attributes a little bit more than like you said, the first couple of games he did start at center back, and I will add on to that. There are a couple more games throughout the season, like the NYCFC game away, where I think Lowe was suspended or something. Him and Ryan Saylor partnered each other. And Miami lost that game, but I will say some of the refereeing calls were a little bit suspicious, so I won't completely blame it on the defense. But yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. McVay, he doesn't get talked a lot, but he does a lot of the little things well. But like you guys
I'm a fan. I'm a fan, and for like I said, I'm worried because I feel like I'm overconfident. I feel like, okay, all we need is one center back. That's how I felt all offseason. We got McVay, all we need is one center back, and I'm like, but am I really like, why am I so confident that McVay is that guy? So I'm, just wanted you to reassure me that he is that guy.
Well, and it's scary because the one word that stuck out to me when you were talking, Alex, is decent. And so, like, I think to myself, geez, we just gave up Damian Lowe. Like, he wasn't decent. He was a little bit better than decent. And now it's like, oh, now we're going to have somebody decent fill in for Damian Lowe. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to, like, be the worst decision ever, but who knows?
Alex, do you think Lowe is average or above average? Because I think he was average.
At defending, he was, above average. I'm looking at his advanced stats now, and he was in the 93rd percentile of tackles, interceptions, blocks. He was high up there in MLS, but I think they were willing to part with Damian Lowe because he doesn't really provide a lot building out of the back. So,
exactly,
for example,
the speed.
Yeah, he has the speed and the defensive ability, but playing out of the back, which Miami wants to do, he wasn't. He wasn't good at that. Looking at his progressive passes and pass completion rate, he's in the lower end of MLS defenders. And then you switch it to McVay and his advanced stats, he's definitely more comfortable on the ball, and that's why Miami went out and got Sergei Krzyztov, who's a ball playing better defensive center back. So I think a lot of the time, they were willing to get rid of let Damian go to Philly because they knew they wanted a new center back. Lowe, he gives you a lot in terms of speed and defense and tackling, but is it fair? It's fair to say there were a couple of moments last season where Damian Lowe did cost the team a couple of points, most notably, that own goal versus Orlando. So Lowe he's a great.
He had a hell of a game right before that, also.
Yeah, he's a great defender, but like he's one of those. And I was really high on him, but he's one of those guys that he has a mistake in him, every once a couple of games, and he doesn't really provide that progressive passing out of the back that Miami wants with this new formation. So maybe I shouldn't have used the word decent for McVay. He is above average, but he does a lot of little things at a B+ level. He's not, he's not going to be like all-star, but he's steady Eddie. So I see why they got rid of Lowe and brought in another center back.
And I want to talk a little bit about Sergey, and then so we go to this comment by Steve Munoz. It's not like we have much choice. I mean, we have to count on McVay, but there's one question before we talk about the new center back that we just acquired. There is one question that I see here in the chat that I think is interesting. Is a question for you, Alex. If you got to watch Ascona play, if so, how did he do? From what I've heard about him is that he is kind of like a shining star in terms of what we can possibly get in the future, whether it's near or far, that's left to be seen. But what do you think about his play?
Yeah, Ascona was great actually. So the game was like 4 like 30-minute halves, and he was in with the Inter Miami CF2 players and the subs. He looked really good. He was direct and took the ball and drove at the opposition's defense a lot. He was playing as a typical 10. He looked really good, but unfortunately he did pick up an injury, a slight hamstring injury. So he wasn't able to really, go all out for the full 30 minutes. But he looked good. Like similar to Noah Allen, I think both of them just needed some time to grow physically and to grow their soccer IQ. But both of them look, ready and good enough for MLS now. And like similar to Noah Allen, I can see Ascona, starting US Open Cup games or even some league games if whoever's playing the 10 needs a rest. So Ascona did look good, but he did pick up an injury, and hopefully it's not too serious.
Esteban, we talked about the preseason, about the low production. We'll be hearing lame diplomatic failure reasons from Neville once the football season starts.
And I don't know. Actually, listening to him on the sidelines, he was pretty angry at the team. So I think in the media he tends to mince words a lot, and I know people want him to tear into the players more, but he's always a coach that will take the blame and never like completely blame his players. He'll say, it's my fault and I should have done better. But on the sidelines, he's always ripping into them and yelling. But it all depends. Neville did extend his contract for this year, and next year, who knows? He may be out. We don't know. And plus the sanctions end next season. So, you never know. But Neville, he's a nice guy, and he won't rip into the players publicly. But standing on the sidelines, absolutely, yes, he does yell at them. And so Yeah. I don't know. You just let's see how the season goes, and maybe he changed up his press conference or something.
I wouldn't be too concerned about the preseason. It was very difficult to find this picture because the preseason matters so little.
Yeah.
So go ahead
Yeah.
and find that picture. That was technically our first trophy. Nobody remembers it because it was preseason. So I wouldn't be too concerned because we followed that up with horrible 5-game starts to the season. And like you said, if we have a horrible preseason, but then we end up with 2 wins against Montreal and the Union, then that'll all be forgotten because all that really matters is February 25th.
Mm.
So I guess we technically touched on it a little bit, but we have now signed that center back that everybody thought we were missing, right? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Sergei Kristov.
Sergei Krivstov.
Sergei Kristov.
Krivstov.
You did it better than we did, Alex.
And then Franco Negri. So we have our back line.
Yeah.
How confident do we feel in our back line? Because with this diamond that they're playing, we feel we're going to need a lot of contribution from our fullbacks to kind of work their way up. So I'm assuming that Gregory's going to be playing really far back to kind of fill in the gaps out on because obviously Christoph.
Yeah, you said it.
And McVeigh are going to have to spread out a little bit to cover those gaps once our fullbacks move up. Like, how do you see this back line playing now that we finally know who's going to be there?
Luckily, Inter Miami have 2 fullbacks in Franco Negri and DeAndre Yedlin who really love to get forward. On Negri's part, he's an attacking fullback. I spoke to people who covered him at Godoy Cruz. He's a guy who loves to get forward. He loves to, pass the ball. He's really good with the ball at his feet. Phil Neville compared him to Nico Figal in the way that he trains, just with that intensity, maybe not the defensive blunders, but just that intensity that he brings, like, that's similar Argentinian defender hard-headedness. So yeah, they have 2 really quick fullbacks that can get up and down the flank, and I'll throw in Noah Allen in there. He looks solid as well. So yeah, they have fullbacks that can get up and down the width, the flanks of the pitch. And then with Krivstov, I spoke to a fan who follows the Ukrainian league really closely. Sergey, he has really good, not good. He has excellent defensive positioning. So he's not the fastest center back, like similar to how Damian Lowe was moved on and McVeigh, maybe he's not as quick, but Christoph, he's got excellent defensive positioning, and he's really good on the ball. So that's part of the reason why. Yeah, part of the reason why Lowe was shipped out. With Damian, you got the quickness and the defensive, just recovery speed, but he lacked in maybe concentration or playing out of the back. But with Christoph, you got a guy who is really good in defense, like excellent in defense. Like that was like the biggest talking point. Him that and his ball playing ability. So yeah, and experience as well. And he's a leader. He captained Shakhtar Donetsk, and Miami got a really good Champions League experienced center back who will probably slot in pretty seamlessly. So with this 4-3-1-2. Like I said, the fullbacks will get up, but in a center back pairing of Christoph or McVeigh or Sailor or what have you, you're going to get enough speed from McVeigh and defensive positioning from Kristoff's where they're able to kind of stop those opposition attacking transition parts. Let's say they lose the ball in the center circle and they go quick. Kristoff's is there with his positioning, and McVeigh, he does have that burst of speed in him to get back quickly. Plus, you have the speed of Negri and then Yedlin, and then like you said, Gregory will be anchoring that, and they'll have like 5 guys back in case that they do lose the ball. So that the formation is really flexible in that part where you can have 5 guys attacking and 5 guys staying, or even 3 guys with the 2 center backs and the defensive midfielder. Also, 3 guys will stay back. The fullbacks will go up, and you still have numbers back there to stymie any of the counterattacks, and that's what they did against St. Louis a lot. Gregory was there a lot of the times just cleaning up what Pizarro gave away the ball or whatever. Gregory was always there to clean it up, and even Mabika and McVeigh, they did have their moments where they were there. So I will say defensively, they did look a little bit better in transition in that regard.
But now Sergey, to me, like everybody's talking about how he's such a strong guy. He's a bully. He's a tough guy, and he's good defensively. Like I feel like that's something that you standardly would want to hear about a center back, like tough guy, good with his feet, can pass. Like, I was looking over, and maybe this is just me not knowing the sport enough, but I know that his career has been in Ukraine and in the premier Ukrainian league. And I look at that and I think to myself, first, how good is he really as a Ukrainian soccer player to be playing purely in the Ukrainian league? Like, I don't know if that translates to like he's a great player, right? I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly, but like it's not like this guy went and he played in Spain and he played in France or in any other league other than his home, league, right? So
That's
like
fair. Yeah.
that kind of terrifies me because, and maybe like I said, maybe it's just me not knowing the sport as well as I could learn it, and that's little by little. But at the same time, it's like if he's been playing for his home league his entire career and then now he's making the jump to the United States, like I don't know how well that's going to translate other than just knowing that he's like a tough guy that's good with his feet.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think I will say that's Chris Henderson's MO. He likes finding those guys, like for example, Stefanelli, he was playing in Sweden. Chris McVeigh, he was playing in Sweden. Um, Franco Negri, he's playing for in the Argentine league, which is still a good league, but
Yeah.
obviously not like European
Yeah.
based. Gregory, he was playing in Brazilian Serie A, and Mata the same thing. So Chris Henderson loves finding these guys who maybe don't play in the best leagues. If it's like unless it's like an Higuain or even Joseph Martinez, he's not going to go after guys like I don't know, like top stars in the big leagues, like how Paul McDonough would have back in 2019, 2020. He's going to
Yeah,
find
big
guys that are,
names.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's going to find guys who are really good at what they do in smaller leagues. And I'll say that's where Christoph comes in. And, that's valid. The Ukrainian league, it's not a top 5 league in Europe or anything. But from everything I've read about Christoph and talked to people and even bothered to find some obscure Ukrainian league games where he was playing. Yeah, he looks good, and time will tell if he can adapt to MLS. But everything I've heard and read, people are really excited for Inter Miami to have acquired him, and all the Ukrainian fans that I've spoke to, they rate him pretty highly. So, like I said, time will tell if he can adapt to MLS. But I'm sure that he'll be able to. Not if not this year. Usually, people who come over from other leagues, it takes them a while to get used to MLS. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year he'll be settled.
I wanted to go back real quick when we were talking about Gregory dropping back and him playing the 6. Last season, towards the end of the year, Mota kind of took over that 6 role. I personally like Gregory back there. I feel like he's more of a bulldog when it comes to defense. But I understand that Mota was out there to serve as an outlet because he's better with his feet. Who do you think is going to be running that 6 spot this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I was talking with that about that with Ian on the pod. Honestly, I think it depends on the opponent that they're going to play. If they need someone who has more defensive grit, they're obviously going to go with Gregory. But if they have most of the ball, they'll probably switch to Mata. He has really good progressive passing range, so maybe they'll switch to him. But in this formation, I think, especially, it'll be a little bit open with the fullbacks going up. Having Gregory back there will probably be more defensively stable. So, yeah, I think it all depends. Sometimes they'll switch. I'll even throw out Victor Ujoa's name. I know he's not, people kind of like ugh and roll their eyes, but during that friendly against St. Louis, he was one of the only players that looked decent, and he looked
He even
really
took
good.
A free kick.
Yeah, he did. He nearly scored. Honestly, he got it on target at least, and he was passing the ball well and cleaning up messes on the field, and he looked good. So Victor Ujoa can play there. We'll throw out Benjamin Kremeshki, not necessarily a DM, but he can play as that left-sided center midfielder. So there are plenty of options there. But yeah, like I said, Gregory defending on the opposition, and Armata if you want more ball passing ability.
And since we were talking about that free kick, just real quick, I got a question here from, I guess that would be Ompus. Have we done anything this offseason to improve our production off of set plays?
Honestly, yes and no. I'll say that their set pieces, it was a revolving door of players taking it. Sometimes it was Robert Taylor. Sometimes it was Pizarro. Like I said, Ulloa got a crack at a free kick. They nearly scored off of a set piece, a corner kick. I actually recorded it on my phone. But Campana couldn't quite get it on target. But like I said, time will tell. But it does look slightly different than it did last season. They do look more, they have a set play, like training
Yeah.
ground stuff. Like they'll line up at the 18-yard line and they'll all rush in. So yes, they do have some set plays, and
they just don't have a quarterback to make the efficient pass. It's like a team that doesn't have has 5 different quarterbacks, has no quarterbacks. So it's they just don't have the person that's able to facilitate
they
that
don't have
play
Higuain, is what you're saying.
Yeah, or Pozuelo at this point.
Well, speaking of Pozuelo, right? And I want to talk a little bit about that, because whenever people are talking about the 10, if it's not about Pozuelo, they're mentioning Stefanelli, they're mentioning a lot of other players, but nobody's mentioned, or at least not that I've heard, Duke, right? Like, wouldn't he be the strong candidate for the 10 if Pozuelo doesn't, or doesn't play for us in the beginning of the season?
Yeah, that's actually a smart shout. Yeah, I agree. I think especially in this formation, like Duke will have the ability to get forward and not much defensive responsibility because he'll be backed by like 3 central midfielders. So yeah, you can definitely give Bryce Duke a try there. Stefanelli, we spoke to him after the friendly. He said he likes playing in that pocket role. So if Pozuelo doesn't resign, you can play him there. Coco Jean got some minutes there, but personally, I think he should play as a center striker. He looked lost playing as a 10, so I wouldn't put him there. But
I think he should play as a left wing bench, is what I think he should play.
Bench. He's all right. I think playing him as a 10 is a disservice to. He wants to get him behind as a central forward, and he's being played as a 10, so that's not where I would put him. But I don't know. Let's see how that goes. But
I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is that people have been speaking a little bit more positively about Coco. But again, we just have so many players that are playing out of position. It's a scary sight to see that. I mean, I don't know if maybe it's because the coach is just putting people in different places just to see how they fit and how they gel. But to me, I think it's just kind of sloppy, because you're playing people in spots where they aren't going to end up playing at the beginning of the season. Now, as far as the Pozuelo, since it was mentioned, is there anything that you've heard about Pozuelo? Like, because we're at a point where there's really nothing going on in terms of any sort of update on him.
Yeah, no, they're still working that cap and trying to fit him in there. Really, I know they have a open DP spot technically, but they still need to move some pieces in order to free up some more of that money. So, like Neville, we spoke to him a couple of like a week and a half ago. He said it'll be difficult, but they're still trying. You look at Pozuelo's Instagram story; he's there in his Brickell apartment, still working out, and they're trying. They're honestly trying, but it'll be hard, but like I said earlier, I didn't mention earlier, but the MLS transfer window closes in April, so they'll have plenty of time to get it done. But they're probably gonna have to move some more pieces to free up some more money, and it gets really messy, and you don't want to redo. Gets really messy, not that messy, but like,
it's a lot of allocating here, there, and everywhere in order to figure out where you're putting your pieces in the right place.
And it's hard, and they don't want to repeat up the sanctions, so they're basically crossing their T's and dotting their I's and making sure that sanction thing doesn't happen ever again. So obviously you could throw them in as a DP, but like there's still money to be freed, so that you can't just do that. So it'll come down to the wire, but they're still working on it.
With Pozuelo, still an uncertainty. Pizarro's back, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest reason we don't have Pozuelo back right now. Esteban wants to know: is he like a third wheel to the team that had no other option, or to receive him, or can we make a pleasant comeback surprise?
Pizarro, honestly, it depends on who you ask, but personally, for me, he looks fitter, he looks sharper, he does work a little bit harder, but still, I just don't think he's quite gelling with the team. Really, I know they're happy to have him back, but on the field, For example, there was a moment where Ariel Lassiter was, he was clean through on the opposition, and
Held the
he was
ball.
clean through on goal, and yeah, and he held up Pizarro held up the ball, and that could have been a really good counter opportunity, but Pizarro, he just likes to slow the play down for
But that's why
some.
Higuain used to get so demonstrative with him on the field. Higuain was constantly throwing his arms up at Pizarro. They butted heads.
Yeah, yeah, that's the reason. Part of the reason why Pizarro was shipped out on loan, because Higuain was still there, and they just could not work together mainly.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know, I don't know. They definitely tried to ship him out, but no one really, no one really wanted to take him. So like you mentioned earlier, if Pizarro would have been bought now or sold to another club, Pozuelo probably would have been here already. But like I said, it's more difficult than that, and yeah, they'll figure it out, but
So, like,
So-
could we go ahead? Go ahead, Danny.
No, I was gonna get to a different topic. Go ahead.
No, I mean, talking about that, like, could we see life without Pozuelo? Like, is there I mean, like you said, there's allocating here and there, but at this point, I feel like the deal is going to happen literally like days or maybe a week max before the first game, just to get the whole fan base hype. That's what I think is going to happen. But I mean, realistically, at this point, there's a lot of people that are really thinking we might not have Pozuelo on this team.
yeah, and yeah, that's a fair assessment. I think, like I said, they're still working hard and pushing it, and the transfer window doesn't close until April. But like you said, it could be down to the wire, and a week before they take on CF Montreal. Yeah, they could possibly sign him, but yeah, they're gonna have to move some pieces, maybe some other players. So, yeah, but like I said, the whole MLS cap situation is very difficult because they don't really give us all the numbers,
Yeah.
just player salaries. But Chris Henderson is very good at his job, and you just got to let him work and do what he does best.
And look at this, Danny. Steve Munoz puts Pizzi as a black hole. Give him the ball and it dies there. That's literally Carmelo Anthony
always
feels.
Yes,
Carmelo.
that was always my criticism of Pizarro, though. Like, I felt like I was watching. I'm Colombian, so I watch a lot of Colombian soccer, and I follow the Colombian players across the world. In Cuadrado, he is that way. He dances with the ball. He makes a couple of nice moves. He gets into the box, but then he does absolutely nothing with it. Pizarro, I feel like he gets the ball, and it's like he's running in like a square. And he just goes and just dances around in a square, but really doesn't do anything productive. So I agree with Steve. It's like a black hole when he gets the ball sometimes. And I understand why Higuain was getting frustrated. I hope he gets out of that habit, though, because, I mean, I understand that he's allowed to do it a little more because we're playing a lot of more possession this year. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a sticky situation, right? I mean, and talking about from go ahead, you were gonna say, Danny?
No, I was going to bring up the fact that you said that we're playing a lot of guys out of position, which is a Neville specialty, right?
Yeah.
We play a lot of guys out of position. And I'm kind of curious what you think as far as him being a little more flexible, because I feel like a lot of the personnel that he has doesn't necessarily fit in this diamond formation. He doesn't necessarily have a 10 as of right now. And this formation without a solid 10 isn't going to give you, as far as what I've seen and heard, what I've heard and read for this preseason, we can't get anything going in that final third. So,
yeah, I will.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go on. I will interject here and say, Stefanelli came on with the subs and the Inter Miami CF2 players, and you're talking about that final third. Him and Ascona were probably the only two players that were driving into that final third. Stefanelli, He looked lively. He was defending. He was all over the place. He was clapping like he was here for years and just encouraging the guys he was with. He's super smart player from talking with him, but he may not be like he may not be Pozuelo, full on creator, but he's definitely a guy who has that in him. And talking with people who watched him play in Sweden, he can play as a 10. He likes playing off of someone else in front of him. So in this formation, yes, definitely can play that. He's not Pozuelo, but Ascona, and like I said earlier, like you said earlier, Bryce Duke as well. There are players who can play there, but out of the three,
I would love to see Bryce Duke there.
Yeah, Bryce Duke's definitely. They're all good, but yeah, I don't know. I agree. I think for one, as far as players being out of position, I'll say maybe Robert Taylor playing as a central midfielder looks a little odd, but he looks
And
good there. And I don't
Ariel
know.
and Lassiter playing either the 9 or a central. I don't see it either. Lassiter needs to be out on the wing, in my opinion. Taylor needs to be out on the I feel like these guys are wings. They're good with the ball at their feet. They're fast. They get the ball up. I just don't see how these guys fit into these 8 roles, because that's where they would essentially be playing in this formation, because
Yeah,
they're not going
I
to be
will.
the 10.
I will say with Robert Taylor playing in that little like you said, the 8 role. A lot of times when they're building up through the back, he'll kind of switch on to the wing. Like Yedlin will be here, and Robert Taylor would take on those traditional wing areas. So like
Yeah.
he's lined up as a central midfielder, but there are a lot of times he will just jog out on the wing and play as a winger. Essentially, it may look a little odd with this formation lineup, but yeah, I think it just depends on their role in the system. And with Ariel, I think what I'm assessing, I think Neville's playing him as a second strike, like a dual striker with him and Campana, because Ariel has the ability to stretch that back line really well, and he's got that speed. So playing him as a forward that just gets him behind, and worst case scenario, if they can't play out the back, they just have someone get the ball to him on the shoulder of the defender. That could be a weapon as well. But yeah, in a sense, I kind of do maybe agree. I think with Coco Jean and Bizarro, I think that them being played as a midfielder or a number 10, I think that does him a disservice. But with like Lassiter or Robert Taylor or I don't know, but those two, Coco and Pizarro, are literally the only 2 players I feel that them being played in the positions they're at, they don't get they're not playing to their strengths at all. So
Lassiter as a 9 last year, I mean, he wasn't playing as a 9, but there were some goals where he had basically the whole goal open, and there was a defender, not a goalie, a defender there. And I think it happened twice where he hit the ball directly to the defender. And it's like, my God, my guy.
And he mentioned
like,
that. He mentioned that. Oh, sorry to cut you off. He mentioned that like 2 weeks ago we spoke to him. He mentioned that he's working on his finishing. So obviously it's something that he is definitely aware of it, and he's working on it.
Keeps him up at night.
Yeah, it is, honestly. And we saw him practicing penalties and finishing drills, and yeah, he's getting better at that.
With Joseph and Campana both playing, right? Because we hope that they both start.
Mm-hmm.
Is Lassiter gonna see time? Like, is he gonna be that backup striker that comes in?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think especially when Joseph gets firing on all cylinders, I think it'll be Campana, Joseph starting, Ariel off the bench, Robert Taylor, Robbie Robinson, and Jake LaCava, who we didn't really mention, but Robbie looks good. Jake LaCava is really good. They both look good. Yeah, I think all 3 of them, Lassiter, LaCava, Robinson, they'll be coming off the bench. But like I said, it depends on the opposition. Neville did say that they're flexible formationally, even though they're set in this 4-3-1-2. They'll switch formations here and now again, so they may go back to the 4-3-3 or back 3, whatever. But yeah, just a lot of fluidity going on right now. But they seem set on that 4-3-1-2.
Well, and since we did have a lot of winger talk, I do want to mention something that Danny had mentioned to me. Bye Emerson. It shatters my heart that he got dealt to a team over in Liga MX. But they had the option to buy, which makes me cry at night now.
Because that means he's not coming back.
No, hey, you never know, man. You never know.
If he comes back, you're not going to want him back, because if they decided not to buy him, it's because he didn't pan out.
So you think it's going to be a Pozuelo deal? I mean, not a Pizarro deal.
But he's not a DP, so it won't be as bad taking him back.
And what do you think about the move, Alex? Do you think, I think it was a good move in terms of it not fitting for Inter Miami at this moment. And I think it gives him a good space to develop and to be a better player. But with that option to buy, that's super scary for me. I mean, isn't there like fees that the team pays if they end up keeping him or something like that?
Yeah. So for one, I'll address the first point. Yeah, I think it's a good loan deal for Emerson because you guys were talking about guys playing in these positions. Emerson was really the only winger that couldn't play as a 10. He couldn't play as a center forward. He couldn't play as a
winger through and through.
Yeah, he's a pure winger. So, and they're sticking with this 4-4-2 diamond that they're doing. He couldn't. There was no feasible way, and there are other guys above him in the depth chart. So he needed playing time. So that's why they loaned him. the buy option, it is surprising. Honestly, they did spend a lot of resources bringing him in. He's a U22 initiative player, so maybe, like Miami, they're 4 years into this and they really haven't had a significant sale. Like you see Philadelphia doing it. Other MLS clubs are selling on their
Yeah.
young talent. Inter Miami have yet to do it, so maybe this Emerson thing they're banking on, him going over to Mexico and doing well, and then maybe Santos Laguna, buying him permanently. So I think that's more of the case. But if he doesn't perform well, then he's back at Inter Miami, and you go from there.
I'm hoping so. Hoping that he comes back. What do you think, Danny?
You're never gonna see him again. Just face it. All right. Now, I'm sure that you've heard about all the Wrexham. How they're getting TV time and everybody's really hyped up because Ryan Reynolds has this team, hopefully gonna get promoted to like the 10th division, whatever the hell it is. But it sparked a lot of conversation about how maybe MLS should look, and by fans, right? Because I haven't heard anybody outside of Twitter talking about it, about how maybe we want to consider promotion relegation. How do you feel about promotion relegation here in the MLS? Because I have my thoughts about it, but I'm kind of curious to hear yours first.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. Honestly, I think it'll be really cool to see. But I just think the way MLS is set up, I don't think it's really feasible at this moment, unless like there are a couple of options. I think if MLS continues to expand and they get to 40 teams, I can see them doing like an MLS 1, MLS 2, and then that's one way because they're not partnering with the USL or anything. But another option is maybe the USL and MLS. They fix their relationship issues and they partner to provide that first division, second division, pro rel, pyramid that they're going on. But in order to do that, a lot of USL teams need to fix up their stadiums. Like for example, Miami FC, who play at FIU, they're playing at a football stadium, at a college football. Like that's not appropriate for like for example, look at some English championship teams or La Liga 2 teams. They have better stadiums than that. So
yes,
like you imagine like LAFC playing at FIU's football team's turf, and like it's not feasible. Like the infrastructure has to be there for USL and even some of the lower leagues, the NISA and some of these pro amateur things. Like it just needs a whole like it needs an overhaul. I'm not against pro rel, but I'm also not like MLS needs pro rel in order to be good. No, like it's fine. Like eventually they'll put it in one day, but that day is not today. So
well,
yeah.
The one thing that Americans love is an underdog.
Mm-hmm.
They love underdogs. So like I think that something like that would actually catch the eye of regular fans, or I guess what people consider normal fans. You don't think so, Danny? You disagree?
Mm-hmm. I think that those things are cute when it comes to the NCAA tournament that goes like for 2-3 weeks, for just playoffs in general, because it's only a month. When you're an owner and you're like, hey, by the way, this is a Cinderella story. Come watch us for 34 games. I'm sorry, you're not going to fill up the stadium 17 times for a Cinderella story in hopes that you get promoted to the big leagues. Like this all comes down to money. And the owners are not going to be okay with having to play in the second division, hoping to get into the first division. Now, in other countries, that works because, it's been around for over a century. So you're kind of accustomed to this. But trying to start that brand new when you're just trying to grow the sport right now, like I honestly don't even think it's an option. You're trying to get fans interested. You're not going to go and start a team in, I don't know, Las Vegas. They don't have a team yet. You don't start a team in Las Vegas and be like, hey, but by the way, you're not going to start in the MLS. You're going to start in the MLS 2, but maybe one day you'll be in the big leagues. Like that's not how it works. In the United States, you're either in the NBA because you're not watching the G League. And I understand that some people think that's stupid because that's the way it works around the world. But in this country, I don't think it's going to work, especially if you're trying to grow the sport. Like maybe after the sport grows in popularity and you have consistent sellouts throughout the country, then maybe you can play with that idea. I like the idea that she had, that Alex had, where 40 teams and then you split it up into 2. I think that's a good idea. But until you grow that popularity and that loyal fan base, I don't think it's a good idea. I think you might alienate some people that aren't accustomed to watching the second division in just hopes of making to the first division. That's why we have a playoff system and a champion at the end after the tournament, because we don't do that. Hey, you end up with the most points in the league and then you're the champion. Like, we're not accustomed to that over here, and that's why we do that differently. So I think in that aspect, I just can't see it happening here in the United States.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, yeah. Plus, I think, yeah, it's just not feasible. Like, there's no infrastructure at USL teams. I know Louisville City, I believe they have a really good stadium. So if every USL team can look like Louisville City's, I think their stadium's like 10,000 seats. It looks super nice. If USL teams
Nice.
can, implement that and continue to grow, maybe. But like you said, I think it's more so gonna be like an MLS 1, MLS 2, 40 teams, and then see how that goes. To the Wrexham point, I don't know. I think it's like, I don't know. I think it's just people wanting a story to hook on to. Like, I remember when Venezia was, the big hipster soccer team that everyone wanted to follow because they had an American owner and a bunch of Americans were playing there. But now they're relegated to Serie B, and now no one wants to hear their story anymore because they're not relevant. So I think Wrexham is the same thing. I think it's just people looking for authenticity, which is fine. But the one thing that bothers me is people saying, oh, I won't watch MLS because the quality is bad, but they'll watch Wrexham, a fifth division team, because of the story. So, you don't have to lie and say it's because of the quality. Just say that you don't particularly like MLS and you want
Or
something
maybe you
more.
enjoy the history, right? I mean, you can say you
Yeah.
enjoy the history. That's something that's
Yeah.
acceptable.
Yeah, but
Look,
MLS has history too, so I don't know why they're I don't know. It's
and I
surprising.
know Newcastle has new owners and stuff, but if you would have told me
Mm.
like a year ago, oh yeah, but I'd rather watch Newcastle versus, I don't know, Southampton over LAFC and Galaxy, I'm like, you're full of crap. Because if you were to take the names and the logos off of those teams, I promise you wouldn't be able to tell which team is which. And I know some people are gonna be, because look, let me tell you something. Some of the most snobby people are soccer fans, because if they're
Yeah,
into
it's true.
European soccer, they're like, oh, MLS, that's beneath me. I promise you, a lot of the times you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two if you're talking about the lower teams in those leagues. I understand when we're talking about the big teams, completely different game. But if you're talking about the 19th and 20th team in the EPL against the top teams in the MLS, yes, I understand that there's a difference. I get
The
it, but
Philadelphia Union can beat Everton, I feel, honestly, genuinely. Like, yeah, that's how poor Everton are at the moment. So yeah, that's a valid statement that you made right there.
but
It's true. It's
but
true. They're bad right now. So
but that's what I mean. So I think some people are so snobby about it. So I get it. I understand that that's different classes, and I can't argue that. I understand the MLS is in the top 5 in the world. I get it. Maybe not even top 7 or 8, whatever. I understand all of that. What I'm saying is that when you say you don't give it a chance, but you're gonna tell me that you can watch the 19th and 20th best teams in EPL play each other, I think you're full of crap. That's all I'm saying. Here we have This is Football Podcast is joining us, and they said there will never be pro rel in the States, primarily because owners won't pay $500 million for a franchise just to be relegated to a 40K team. Yeah,
yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah, yes, I agree.
I agree. I agree also. I think that it comes down to the bottom line, and when the bottom line is always the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now talking about dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Today, Apple TV has finally dropped, and I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. I was at work all day, came home, picked up the kids. So I haven't had a chance to play with it. But everything I've heard is that it's user friendly and it has a whole lot of content already. Have you had a chance to dive into Apple TV MLS season pass already, Alex?
Yeah, and it looks great. Honestly, I wasn't a big proponent of like this deal because I think it's going to alienate a lot of casuals. They're probably not going to pay
Yes.
$14.99 for MLS or $100 for an annual subscription. But for the hardcore MLS fan or people who cover the league like I do, yeah, it looks great. It's easy to use, and I love some of the stories that they're doing here. I'm looking at Inter Miami's page right now, and they have a bunch of player profiles up on Joseph Martinez, Yedlin, Campana, John Mata, and I watched a couple of them last night, and they're really well done, and I enjoyed it a lot. And like all the highlights are here. You can watch full post game, past previous matches that Inter Miami play. You can watch the full 90 of them. There's
Nice.
there's just a lot of cool stuff on here. Like they have something called the Ritual, which they go around the league and showcase traditions and cultures. They beyond the pitch, iconic players. David Beckham's on there. Player profiles. It's just really cool, and Yeah, like I said, the casual probably won't drop $14.99 on it. But like if you're a hardcore MLS fan or a journalist, like it's fun and the user experience is great. And I already downloaded the app on my smart TV. All I need is to log in and subscribe. So, and no
Well,
blackouts. So
and the one thing that I remembered that was mentioned when this Apple TV thing was getting started was that the teams had to be held responsible for their content, right? So like, I mean, we're just looking at Inter Miami, but I actually wonder if anybody has taken a look at other teams and seen, wow, there's a little bit of a lack of content here.
yeah, and that's a big they're those teams are being exposed, man. Like it shows that they're it shows that their
It is
their media section of the club isn't as full fledged.
is lacking at the
Like
moment.
like I'm looking at NYCFC and they're like former MLS Cup champions and they really only have like highlights up here. There's no player profiles or anything, and it's a shame because I know that reading about this deal, a lot of the teams will have to be responsible for a lot of this content. And Inter Miami already did it somewhat already, so they had these things ready to go. But yeah, there's some bare bones teams. Like for example, RSL, Real Salt Lake, they dropped a club profile and it's like a minute long and it doesn't nearly dive into their history as much as it should have. Like these are like RSL is a team that won MLS Cup and
And they have a
even
history.
they have a
history for
deep
sure.
history, but like
Yeah.
their club profile is a minute long. Like that's crazy. So
Well,
the-
NYCFC, I understand because they basically just lost their whole team this offseason. So
True.
they have no player profiles to go over.
True.
Well, I mean, at this point, at least we know that if anybody's looking for like a digital position in this industry, RSL is probably going to hire you.
Yeah. Do you want to live in Utah though? Like, no shade, but like, I'm sure it's pretty, but like, I don't know.
Hey,
I've
Karl
heard it's very
Malone did it
pretty.
for a while, and so did
true.
John Stockton.
True.
Right.
Now, I
Fair,
have a
true.
question about this Apple TV deal, and this question might be a little bit different than you've seen, but it's an interesting question, right? Danny and I, we went to a restaurant a couple months back to go, eat. We wanted to watch the game. The game was on, right? But now, what are bars going to do about this, right? Because bars aren't plugging into their local feed. They're not looking at
Apple
Whammy.
TV.
Are they going to be hooking up their Apple TV to watch Inter Miami play? Like, I imagine that there's bars where a lot of the supporter groups go to. They'll probably have it. But, I mean, there was a lot of other bars that were playing the games. I mean, what are bars going to do at this point?
Yeah, and that's a big question. I was speaking with Ian Hest and some other colleagues about that. What are bars going to do? Are they going to shell out the $14.99 a month, or are they going to drop $100 on the off chance that Inter Miami fans watch the game? Like that's a big question, and that was one of my worries about this deal: the casuals and the bar culture and the away games. How are they gonna galvanize that? So I think. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Let's see how it goes, but it's a concerning thing. But I think if there's one set, like for example, if there's a bar that really wants or has a reoccurring customer base where I don't know, like Vice City or Southern Legion, they want to go and watch a game. I think they'll turn it on, or someone will use their account to turn it on. But like for these little like sports grill bars, like I don't know. I don't know if they'll turn it on or spend that money.
Well, like you said, the casuals might be getting it's going to be a lot harder to get the casuals now with this, even though they said I think it was like 40% of the games are going to be streamed free.
And yeah, I'll
you still gotta want to get on there and stream it though.
Yeah, I think though, and I hate how people keep saying that because for casuals, like for casual Inter Miami fans, Inter Miami only has one game that's going to be free. Like they're playing one game that's free. Like the 40% thing is like if you're an LAFC fan, that 40% thing is great. But if you're an Inter Miami fan and casual, like you're only getting one game. You might as well subscribe to the thing. So. Like if you want to watch MLS as a casual, 40% of the game's free. But if you're an Inter Miami fan that just wants Inter Miami like casual like viewing, like you only get one game, so you might as well subscribe to the thing. Yeah.
What do you know by chance? What game that was?
I have to recheck, but I think it's like against Nashville or like Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nashville.
Yeah.
You should have given us the rivalry game. See, at least get some juices going.
Orlando, yeah. Orlando, yeah. Their fans. Yeah.
Yeah, we know some fun fans online.
Yeah, they're a little too much.
Look, Ompe is awesome skiing in Utah during the MLS off season. There you go.
Mhm.
So, Chris, look at that. You can go be their video guy, and you can go skiing in the off season.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I want to just real quick. There was a comment here about there are millions of football fans in the U.S. It just happens to be. It is a fragmented football following in which MLS tries to get their attention besides getting casual fans from other sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The Premier League is huge, and most people are, they're not going to divest. And yeah, it's like, let's say you live in Phoenix. There's no MLS team there, so you might as well follow Liverpool or Arsenal or whatever team you support. But
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
All right. So covered basically just about every topic that we had to cover, and I wanted to just jump right back into Miami just right before we let you go. The way the team has looked now, the roster built as it is, right, without that go-to 10, because we don't know yet if we're gonna get Pozuelo back or not. What are your expectations for this season?
I think that, looking at the roster from last season, there were periods of time where Gonzalo Higuain didn't play because, rightfully so, he was out of form and sulking, and, Neville was right to bench him. So during that time, Miami was able to play super well with essentially zero DPs, right? The only DP was, like Campana and the money that he was making, but he wasn't a DP, but he was playing like one. But they
Right.
essentially played with zero DPs for most of the season because Higuain was benched or injured or whatever.
And my
They
Tweety was
played
taking
well.
pictures at Brightline.
Yeah. Okay. So they played.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like, they played well without the DPs. So with this season, Pizarro's back and he's DP, and maybe they bring back Pozuelo and Campana resigned with a full season of like a full strength Campana, and maybe Pozuelo comes back, and then you have other guys like Negri and Stefanelli and I'm blanking right now, but like they brought in a couple of players that will just solidify the squad. My expectation, I think they're going to start off slow, but better than last season. So I don't think they'll go like on a losing streak. I think they'll probably win one game against. I don't say Montreal because Montreal did lose a couple of their really good players, so they may be stumbling a bit, and they have a new coach. So maybe they'll win against Montreal. Maybe they'll draw or lose against Philly, but I think they'll be more consistent than last season. I think they'll do better than what they did. I think they'll play more consistent soccer. They'll have more consistent winning streaks, and they won't like win 5 straight and then lose 5 straight. I think they'll be consistent. They want to finish top 4, and the fact that they were able to finish, 6th place last season, despite that losing streak and Higuain getting benched, they can only improve. So I'd say I'd have them at 6th, 5th, or 4th place in the East if they can really do it. If they bring back Pozuelo, but Stefanelli's playing as at 10. I think 6th, 5th place is
reasonable.
Is reasonable.
And it's funny because we were just talking about Matuidi. I can imagine like Alex going up to the media guy at Enter Miami, be like, "Hey, I want to interview Matuidi," and the guy goes up to Alex like, "Go ahead and meet him over at the Brightline stage."
Yeah. Matuidi was, I don't know. That was all Paul McDonough. I don't know why they signed him. It was a wrong fit for everyone.
That was a horrible fit. Alex, goal prediction between Campapi and Joseph.
Oh, wow. I think it'll be similar to Higuain and Campana last season. I think they'll each score over 10 goals each. I think maybe Campana will get a little bit more because he's younger and probably a little bit more fitter than Joseph at the moment. But I think with Joseph, I met him the other day. We spoke to him the other day. He's hungry. He wants to show Atlanta, he's upset. Like he wants to.
He's not washed.
Yeah, that he's not washed.
Yeah.
He just had a son recently, so he's super calm but he's still super laser focused, and he looks fit, and he's ready to go. Like he wants to score. So 10 goals for each of them, with Campana maybe scoring a little bit more, but I'll say they'll score. Joseph will score around 13, and Campana will get like 15 or 16, with like Lassiter and Robinson and LaCava getting like 2 or 3 each.
So just under 30, because I feel like Joseph. For me, that line is at 15, and I really feel like he should get up to 15. And if he gets under 15, I don't want to say it's a disappointment, but I feel like if he's back to being healthy, he should be at around 15. And Campana also, I think that combined, they should be able to total 30 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah, it's just like what Esteban just mentioned it. 30 combined goal total. And I could see that. I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping for. I feel like if we can get that together, I definitely think we get to finish top four. And I think our back line is more solidified. I hear a collective round of applause from all of us to Alex Windley for her time and enlighten us with her foot charm and football knowledge.
Esteban Dito is speaking nothing but facts. I had planned to put a tie on because
a tie?
you are top knowledge when it comes to this, when I get my information from Twitter. So your work is amazing, and I join in that round of applause. You are amazing at what you do, and I know you're very humble, but you are good at what you do. So much respect. Much respect.
Thank you. I'm all right. Well, yes, thank you for the kind words, you guys.
No, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Sure.
Chris, do you have anything else, or anybody in the chat? Anything else before we head out, Chris?
Well, hopefully somebody in the chat, if you do have anything else, it was a pleasure having you guys in the chat on. I know it was a pleasure to have Alex on. I know I could say that for Danny as well.
Chris, you're not going to bring up the toast? I'm not going to lie. I'm a little shocked.
Am I? Okay, you know what? Let's just, we're just going to do it.
He respects you so much that he just wanted to have serious soccer talk.
I wanted to have serious talk, no clownery. With
everybody else, he brings up the toast. And with you, he said, I'm not even going to bother Alex with the toast.
I don't know. I don't know. I felt like I had to be super professional. I'm telling you, I forgot my tie and I was already crushed. So the last couple guests that we had on our podcast, we had a picture that was given to us by Callie, and he sent over a picture and it shows 3 items. So here we're looking at it for the people that are listening on Apple, iTunes, or whatever. The first row is 5 pieces of steak. The second row is 6 pieces of bread. And then on the last row, we have 6 cups of coffee. So if you could just take a pick on one of each and go right ahead.
All right. So I've seen this on Twitter before, so I already know my answers. So 3 for the steak. The toast.
Just understand before you answer the toast, I am gonna judge you extremely on what you pick, depending on what it is.
Oh, the pressure is mounting now. All right. So for the toast, it really depends. If I'm eating like a vegetable spread or like an egg spread where I put bacon on top, I'll toast it a little darker, like at 3 or 4. But if I'm eating a sandwich and I want it just slightly toasted, I'll do 2. So I'll stick with 2, 3. You want it a little. I don't like.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Alex. 3 is the right answer.
Yeah, 3.
I'm with you, Alex. You got a friend in me.
That's good. Chris, you're a little disappointed, but that's how I like my toast.
He likes 6.
No.
Oh wow, that's a little. That's a little too much.
I said I'll take 5.
That's rough.
I'll scrape off that.
How about your coffee?
All right, so coffee. It's honestly, it really any of them, not anything but A, really, but normally I'll drink it like D or E. I like my milk and my coffee, so
that's nice.
I actually, one more thing before we let you go. Steve Munoz just put shout out to Black Herons United. The club finally acknowledged with a Black History Month post. Time. We saw that I want to say half an hour before we came on. I know we were talking about it after Martin Luther King Day. It was brought to everybody's attention on Twitter that they didn't have a post this year. I went back and looked. They didn't have one last year, the year before. So I think it's great that they finally acknowledged that. I saw Yedlin immediately reposted it. So it's obviously something that got traction. I don't know if it was what the Black Herons United started a couple weeks ago or what it was, but whatever it was, I'm glad that it got out there and finally got them to acknowledge some of that, because it's the smallest and simplest of efforts to do that. And it's important also to have everybody feel included.
Yeah, and they've been working, Black Herons, they've been working behind the scenes a lot. Today's their 1-year anniversary. And yes, I am in the group chats because, obviously being, African American, Caribbean American, it's important. And I love Inter Miami and their Latin flair and everything. But, there was also, non-Latin folks and non-Spanish speaking people who do follow Inter Miami and want, to feel included as well. So it's not so much of like, they hate all the good stuff that Inter Miami does with the Latin fans and whatnot. They just want to be included, essentially. It's just like a whole South Florida thing that they want to, all different cultures and whatnot.
there was definitely a lack of recognition for sure. And I saw the letter that was written also online, and that was a beautiful letter.
Well written.
I felt like it was well written. It was very passionate. You could tell that it's from the heart, from the right place, for the right ideals, So I could for sure this was a finally a big move by the organization to make. Such an easy move to make, but it was a big move nonetheless. So it's a step in the right direction.
For sure. All right. Well, you got anything else for the people, Chris?
No, that's it. Until next Woo Wednesday, I think. If not,
I mean, we're trying to do this every Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, Alex, look, it was a pleasure to have you on. We're super happy to have you on. I'm pretty, and as you can see, everybody that's on the chat was super happy to have you on. So thank you so much for your time. And I know Daniel was definitely happy to have you on as well.
For sure. Yeah, I'm your biggest fan, Alex.
Honestly, God, thank you for the words, but I'm all right. I'm just trying to give people the most accurate and comprehensive info on Inter Miami because the fans deserve it. They've been waiting for this team for such a long time, and they need that info. So I'm just here bringing it to the masses, I guess.
Well, we appreciate everything you do for the fan base that follows Inter Miami and everything that you do just in general. And hopefully we get to talk again.
Yes. Thank you guys for having me on.
Well, and thank everybody in the chat, everybody that was watching live, everybody that's listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or if you're watching this on YouTube later on, thank you guys for listening. And we will catch you guys next week for episode 32 of the Battered Herons podcast. Thank you for tuning in.